What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Will Putney on the phone. Thank you for your time today, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Yep, it's so awesome to have you here. The first thing is always first. The real thing I wanted to promote is the new End album, Splinters from a Never-Changing Face. You just want to talk about how the making of this album was. It's scheduled to come out on June 5th via Closed Casket Activities. How was the making of it?
We had a lot of fun with this one. I think we did the EP a couple of years ago, and this band sort of started as something to do for fun, But it was pretty well received, and we definitely wanted to take this one a little more serious, so we spent a lot more time on it. I had a lot of songs ahead of time. Greg, my other guitar player, had a lot of stuff, so we just got together, and it's one of the first records in a while where I was just kind of written with another guitar player, like almost hand in hand through the whole thing. We just had a lot of fun putting the songs together, like together, like feeding off each other. We usually produce our own records, write a lot of our own music for other projects, and it was a cool experience for both of us to be fully collaborative on it. Getting Billy in the mix earlier this time, working with us too was fun, and overall, just really happy with the record. We're all friends, so this is not a tough one to make, and everybody likes hanging out together and working on music together. So it's just a very easy process.
Awesome. Cool. Now, one thing I was curious about is, being that you released that EP earlier, could that EP serve as a clear preview or maybe representation of what the whole full-length album is going to sound like, or is this going to be a little bit different from that EP?
It's definitely got those vibes for sure. It's the same band, same sort of aesthetic from the last record, but I feel like we probably leaned a little more into some extreme stuff that we haven't done before. There's a bit more of a grind influence on this new record. There's a little more of the Napalm Death, Rotten Sound kind of stuff than just the straightforward hardcore stuff we were doing last time, and then all the same influences are there. It's nothing, we're not reinventing the wheel per se, but we just borrow from a lot of influences, and obviously there's more songs on this, so there's more of a chance to let certain things shine this time than just with an EP. But we think it's an amped up version of the EP, so hopefully other people do too.
Yeah. Well, was the original intention of End to combine, what you've done with Fit for an Autopsy, to combine that with the sound of Counterparts and Misery Signals and Dillinger Escape Plan, or were you guys trying to maybe do something that you never, were you trying to go into uncharted territory in a way?
Yeah, I think it's the opposite of that, to be honest. I think a lot of the reason why I wanted to do a band like this is because I didn't have an outlet for this kind of heavy music, And I'm pretty sure Brendan and the other guys feel the same way too. We, this is the type of music we like to write and play and stuff, but it doesn't really work for Fit or Counterparts or anything. So the intention of this band was to kind of get out of that box and do other stuff more so, So I don't really think. I think, if anything, we purposely go further away from what we do in bands with End just because it has its own identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a little ironic. Didn't I see End with Counterparts recently, back in November, with Varials and a bunch of other bands?
We did hop on a couple shows because Brennan was here and on the East Coast, and we could do them. Generally, it's easy to play a show with End if Counterparts is on it. Because we know our singer's there. But, in the future, I don't know if we'll do too much more of that, because there's just a lot of other bands that probably make more sense for End to actually play with. Whenever we're allowed to play shows again, we'd like to go out with other bands where I think it makes more sense with what we do,
Yeah. Well, from watching you play, and because I will say that End is a very, very aggressive band. You definitely pull no punches with it, but I do consider it to be partially experimental. I get many different vibes and hear many different sounds from it. Is there a certain sound you're trying to achieve with End, or are you guys almost treating it in a way like a mad scientist project?
I think it's just the sum of all the parts. I think obviously there's a DB hardcore influence and a lot of the stuff that we draw from bands like tragedy and curse and his hero was gone, combined with like some of the grind stuff and some of the like later 90s hardcore like Turmoil style riffing and stuff. We just like kind of pull all this stuff together, and whatever comes out comes out, so you'll get like fast stuff, you'll get slow stuff, you'll get weird stuff. I think it's just like this melting pot of our influences into this band, so on the new LP at least, I know there's definitely some more out there stuff that we haven't done before, and I feel like that's just us having the room to kind of lean into some of those subgenres like a little more, because we have more time and more songs on this album.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to seeing End live, because I know that you guys were supposed to play with a Body Count at Webster Hall, and but like when I saw you at the Counterparts Varials show, I mean, it was insane. The crowd interaction was phenomenal. All of you guys killed it. But like, being that, I feel like that this style of music thrives really hard on crowd interaction. Is there maybe a different energy into playing this stuff live versus when you're in studio and in songwriting mode?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a completely different animal live. We definitely, we want to try to play these songs out more because I think they're going to translate well and be really fun in a live environment. And I think partially why this band even exists is because this stuff is just so fun to do live, And, I know with the state of the world right now, there's not much we can do, but we did have a lot of shows planned. And hopefully when everything gets put back together here, we'll still be able to get out there and do a lot. There's a lot of places we haven't played yet, and, cities and countries that we haven't even been to, because we're a relatively new band who is kind of part-time, but we all kind of have the intention of giving it a proper go on this record and making sure we can play these songs in as many places as possible.
Awesome. Being such a prolific artist, is there a different mind frame that you put into End as you do with Fit for an Autopsy? Or maybe is there kind of like a usual, I like this term, like method behind the madness that could apply to just music in general?
There are definitely different things, and when I'm writing for each band, I definitely approach stuff differently. I don't know, like, if I have a concrete answer for that, but I know with End, it definitely feels like it's all coming from a different place, than it does with the Fit stuff. I think a lot of it with End too. End is definitely more of a collaborative process. So for me, it's a whole different approach because I'm writing songs like more equally with other members of the band, and I'm way less involved lyrically than I am with the Fit stuff. So it's almost like kind of taking the backseat at times too, where normally I would be sort of putting everything together and being a lot more controlling over the process. With the End, it's kind of nice because I have these guys in the band who really, are held in with me, and I'm able to like sit back and let things happen, which is cool. It's something that, I usually am in control when it comes to some of the other Fit stuff, and do a lot more of the bulk of the writing, and this process is a bit more relaxed for me in a sense,
Do you think that maybe makes it a little bit more organic too, because it's not as dictated?
No, I think my ideas for both bands still come from a genuine place. I'm not sure if I don't think that organic is a word that I would call that, because I feel like if I'm writing music for either project, I'm still doing what I want, and however, whatever comes out is still a result of just my creative process. But I think it's just, a sum of different parts for the End records, where other people's influences, come in a little heavier on certain things that they do with like the Fit stuff. So, but it is a fun collaborative process, and I think part of why, and it feels so good to me is because of the other dudes in the band, and being able to like create ideas from all these different angles is a really inspiring thing for me too.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I'd imagine it's not like, working with End is opening up ideas on what you'll bring into Fit for an Autopsy. You try to keep like every project like separate as possible.
Yeah, for me they're just extremely separate things. for everything from the vibe of the band to the production to the, content, the imagery, the aesthetic of the band, the lyrical side of things. Like, they're all from different places to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just see these two completely different things.
Yeah. Now, also working as a producer and an engineer, like working with bands such as Body Count and Every Time I Die and Knocked Loose and Thy Art Is Murder and so many very awesome bands. Like, we talked a lot about the projects that you're, hands-on involved with, but is there maybe is it almost a completely separate art when you're working as an engineer and as a producer as well?
Yeah, as a producer, I'm being creative and I'm trying to make songs better and, doing everything that I can to make a strong record with the artist that I'm working with. But at the end of the day, it's always like the artist's vision as opposed to solely mine. Like when I work with a band, we figure out together what we think the best step is for the record or the best thing we want to put out there, what's special about these songs, what's unique about this band, and the goal is always to try to make the best possible for the artist that I'm working at. But I'm doing that to fulfill what the artist wants, and fortunately, usually that is in line with what I like or what I think is a good idea for the artist. But in a sense, I'm still working for somebody else to try to make their music a certain way. Whereas, with End, I'm just able to actually just make the music that I want to make, and we don't really care what other people think about it. It's just us doing what we want to do without any real outside influence. So it's a different process in that sense where I don't feel like I'm trying to service somebody else's needs. I feel like we're just free to create stuff exactly the way we want to do it.
Mm-hmm. So when an artist approaches you as a producer and an engineer, do they come up to you like being like, this is what we want and you have to execute it? Or do they sometimes also want you to bring a little bit of your own mix to it?
Yeah, I think that I don't think I would work well with a band that wasn't open-minded to hearing my ideas out. It would be something that I'd be interested in, per se. But I think, it's a collaborative process between what a band wants and what my vision could be for it. I think bands choose to work with me because I can bring good ideas to the table for their band and not just do exactly what they're told, because at that point they don't even really need me. They're just going to want to do what they want to do, So it's definitely like a two-way street there, with when I'm working with any band, really.
Yeah, I've always said that like producers and mixers, engineers are like, whether it's you or Jason Sukoff or Chris Lord-Alge or whatever, being like, they're like the fifth Beatle, the sixth Beatle. If you're in Slipknot, the 11th Beatle in a way. I almost consider that to be just as much of a member.
Yeah, I think so. I do have that relationship with a lot of the bands I work with, where I'm kind of, even outside of music, just involved with what they're doing and helping. Like, we're all kind of on the same team, and everybody wants to see the band do as good as they can. And anytime there's like important decisions, or we always there's a lot of bands that I kind of stay in touch with, even just outside the record, and especially with the records, obviously. But we're all in it for the same goal, so everyone tries to help each other out and kind of work together on doing the best job we can.
Yeah, and it almost seems like, and please correct me if I'm wrong with this assumption, but it almost seems like you're kind of like a specialist, working with Every Time I Die and Gojira and Thy Art Is Murder, Knocked Loose, like very, very aggressive, in-your-face bands. But like, could you almost picture like working with like a more mainstream hard rock band? I don't know, like Hoobastank or something like that?
Sure, records can be, they're easier to make and they're harder to make, where it comes with a different bag of challenges. But anytime I've been in a situation like that, I do enjoy those challenges too. So I just happen to be, the bands and artists that call me, you're only as popular as the records that you make, so in this world, I've made a lot of records that are more extreme, and that's usually just what bands are interested in calling me for, because that's what my portfolio looks like. It doesn't necessarily mean that's like what all I can do or what I'd even like to do forever, but that's just the nature of how things go right now. not that I'm complaining, because I do enjoy my job and I like, the bands that I work with, and I have fun making these records. But yeah, I mean, I think I would do well in other situations outside of this genre too, because extreme music isn't all I'm interested in, and it's not even really all I listen to anymore. It's mostly when I put a record on after listening to, a death metal band for 12 hours a day, it's not going to be a death metal record. So my tastes have even changed and shifted where, I find myself listening to music outside of this genre more frequently than not anyway. So, yeah, I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, like, if you can see an angle that makes a record better, I think you can still be valuable as a record producer no matter what your previous work is, so it's definitely its own set of challenges, but something that's, I'm still interested in.
Yeah. Do you almost have to kind of change mind frames a little bit, or change hands in a way depending on the artist you're working with? Does it almost, or is there kind of a usual art behind production and engineering that can almost apply to anything?
I mean, there are yes and no. I think there's, techniques to recording that can apply widely, and then there's obviously the specific things about the given artist that you work with where you have to focus on, in a different subgenre of music. Let's say what works in that world, or, what's been done there that could be better. It's all about finding the strength of the particular artist and what is making that band stand out, or why people are drawn to that band, and sort of playing on those strengths from that band. And then I always kind of, look at that as more of a global approach. And whatever that translates to on the production or engineering side, I think it's just this kind of more global theme that I know it's always important to keep in mind. And that would apply to anyone, So there are these, broader things to think about when you're producing records, but, then there are all the specifics that could be wildly different.
Definitely. And I have two more questions for you, but does working as an engineer and a producer, that also has to open up completely many different ideas? You may have, there had to have been stuff you've discovered by accident that maybe have enhanced your skills as a musician as well, right?
Sure. I mean, I'm fortunate where I do get to work with a lot of talented people, and, things rub off on you. I'll always just, come across somebody who has a certain style of playing, or writes a riff in a certain way where I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I think subconsciously you're just inspired by the artists that you're around. So over time, I'm sure I've picked up tricks here and there and watched people do cool stuff, and it's kind of in the back of my head, that was cool. Maybe I could use that one day. Who knows? But yeah, I think if you're just surrounded by stuff like this all the time, things are always going to rub off on you. And I've seen I've learned what not to do. I've definitely spent a lot of time working with bands where, when it's time for me to sit down and write, in my head I know where not to take songs, because I know where problems can arise, or I know when I've heard something so many times and it doesn't work, or a certain type of lyric, or, things that just don't connect. You also kind of can learn from the experience of just making records and watching how people react to certain songs or certain things in songs. So it's a bit of what to do and what not to do. You can also kind of pull from the whole record production process over time.
Yeah. And you ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview? I stumble every musician with this. I'm on a spree. How do you know?
What do we got?
How do you know? And this could go for either when you're working with End or Fit for an Autopsy, or when you're working, behind the mixing board. How do you know when a song is done?
How do I know when it's done? That's good. How do I know when a song is done? Wow, that's tricky. I feel like I don't know. This is a good one. I am baffled here. I usually, when I'm writing a song, I have a goal in mind. At some point I go, I want to make a song that does this. It's got to do this thing, or I want to make it feel a certain way, or the lyrics have, lyrically, I want to make sure this point gets across, or you're left feeling a certain way. So when I get there, I don't know if the song is necessarily done, but I know that the song is what I wanted it to be, and that could be like a variety of things. It could be a mood instrumentally, like I said, or it could be like a point that I want to make lyrically. But the song couldn't be done until I felt like mentally that I had like gotten there, with a piece of music. So it's always like if I'm writing music with a goal in mind, then that's when I can feel comfortable about being like, cool, this song's doing what I want it to do. I don't know if that means it's done, because there's still, for me, everything could always be better, and anytime I write a song, if I listen to it a few months later, I'm always like, I wish I didn't do that, or this part could have been cooler, this lyric could have been cooler. I think that's just the endless torment of musicians where they always, look back at their past stuff and think things could be better than they were. But for me, I just want to know why a song exists and make sure that I get that done with a song, and then I feel like it has some kind of value,
That's a good way of putting it. One engineer who I interviewed, who's sadly no longer with us, Kato Kandwala, he told me a song is complete when there's nothing left to take out.
That's pretty good, yeah. I don't know if, I like that approach. If you can't find a flaw with any part of the song, then I guess you have a finished song, But for me, I feel like there are plenty of songs where I feel like I've left stuff that I was a little uncomfortable about leaving, and then later it was like, oh, I'm kind of glad that's there. Like, I'm glad, like, my gut initially said, like, no, do this too, But that is kind of cool. If you can't find a flaw in your song, to you, then I guess you have a complete one. So
yeah, the more radio editions or special editions I see of a song, the more I realize that the artist may have not been happy or with the first initial take. That's how I judge when a song is done. How many radio edits or how many special edition versions of the song there are.
Yeah, honestly, that's usually not on the artist. That's usually probably the opposite. It's usually the artist really pushing for something and having, like, let's say, a longer song or a different verse or parts in it, and then later being told by other people, hey, this isn't going to fly on the radio, we got to cut this out, we got to make this edit, this has to be shorter, you can't say this word, you got to do this. So a lot of times the edits don't really come from the artist, they come from the higher powers that are trying to get this thing to do something on a radio.
Yeah, I've noticed that with Typo Negative's classic song, Everything Dies. When you listen to it on World Coming Down, there's like this nice jam little riff session before it kicks into the main composition. But when you listen to it on the Greatest Hits album, it just goes straight into that main composition.
Yeah, if you hear a song on the radio and it's a minute shorter or there's like a verse missing or something, the artist wasn't pushing for that. That was somebody else trying to get a song somewhere to work, in a certain type of format. But usually that was probably a lost argument between an artist and a label, initially with a song.
Yeah. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time. I'm glad we could finally make this happen. Is there just anything else that you would like to promote for Fit for an Autopsy or for End or for any of the projects that you're involved with during this time that's rather uncertain thanks to a virus that I shall not be naming because I don't want to give a promotion?
I guess, this just goes across the board. Right now, a lot of bands are home, and, bands make money on the road. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that at this point. So pretty much every band you like's main source of income is now just cut short. So the best thing you can do if you want to support a band as a fan right now is to just pick up some merch from bands. I think everybody has some kind of merch store out there. If you can buy stuff directly from bands, that's cool. I know, Fit runs our own. We do our own merch store now and ship our own stuff. But, just keep buying stuff from artists because it'll help keep them afloat while everyone's just waiting to get back on the road.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Will. Everybody, Will Putney of Fit for an Autopsy and End, Splinters from a Never-Changing Face, coming via Closed Casket Activities June 5th. Be sure to pick that up. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.